Memories are classified into two types, primary memory and secondary memory. So definite means what? Each operational step or operation must be definite. Computer memories are semiconductor memory. Then what about secondary memory? That's nothing but the magnetic optical memory. Hello to all, a warm welcome to my new session on model question paper discussion. I am Revati from the Department of Computer Science, Vidhyaashram Pre-University College, Temple of Excellence, Mysuru. So dear student, in my today's session, once again I am going to deal with the part B questions along with the solution. So dear student, in my last session, I have discussed the question paper pattern along with the weightage of each chapter along with the part A questions as well as solution. But in my today's session, I'm just going to deal with only part B questions. So as I told, in the part B, once again, I'm going to get 10 questions. Out of 10 questions, I want to answer only 5 questions. And each question carries 2 marks. So here, answer any 5 questions and each question carries 2 marks. So 5 into 2, it is 10 marks. Now, let me to solve these questions one by one. So, what is the question number? It is 16 because 1 to 15, it is part A question. 1 mark question, 1 to 15. But here, I'm going to deal with part B. So, the question number starts from 16. What is my first question? That is, briefly explain the application of computers in education. So, dear student, while answering any question, please go through the questions 2 or 3 times because see here, explain the application of computer in education. That means how we can able to use computers in education. So, to do advanced search. That means if I consider any education field to do the searching or to prepare any documentation, we are going to use computer. Now, to take any online class, I'm going to use computer. And to prepare notes, once again, I'm going to use computer. Then if I want to participate any educational contest, I'm going to use computer. So it carries only 2 marks. Write at least 4 points and each point carries half mark. So you can very easily get 2 marks. Now, what is the application of computers in education? That is advanced search. That's nothing but the research work. Then to take online class, to prepare notes and to participate in educational contest. Once again, I'm going to use computer. Now moving on to the second question from part B. The question number here it is 17. What is the question? Give the difference between primary and secondary memory. That means I want to give the difference between primary memory as well as secondary memory. Here the answer is memories are classified into two types, primary memory and secondary memory. Now I want to write the difference. So what I'm going to do? I'm going to make a 2 column. In my first column, primary memory. In my second column, secondary memory. Now what's the first difference? Here, computer memories are semiconductor memory. Then what about secondary memory? That is nothing but the magnetic optical memory. Now, if I consider primary memory, it is volatile, that is called temporary memory. And if I consider secondary memory, it is non-volatile and it is called permanent. And if I consider primary memory, it is expensive. And if I consider secondary memory, that means to buy hard disk, floppy disk or magnetic tape, it is less expensive. Now, the execution of primary memory is faster, the execution of secondary memory is slower. It's also called, that means primary memory is also called main memory and the secondary memory is also called auxiliary memory. And example for primary memory, random access memory and read-only memory. And if I consider secondary memory, what is the example? That is hard disk drive, pen drive, etc. So dear student, each difference carries half marks. So I need to write at least 4 difference in order to get 2 marks. Moving further, what is multi-programming operating system? Give an example. So dear student, I will tell you what is multi-programming, that is multiple program. So what is multiple program? I want to perform multiple programs concurrently or simultaneously. So a multi-program is the capacity or capability of the CPU to execute 2 or more programs. So it is the capacity of the CPU to execute 2 or more programs concurrently. Now, 2 or more programs are stored concurrently in primary memory and CPU moves from one program to another. For example, if I want to listen the music while preparing documents. So think that I'm going to prepare my resume. At the same time, I'm going to listen the music. That is, listen to the music. Now, this is the example for multi-programming. That means I'm going to perform both the activities concurrently. The example for multi-programming operating systems are Windows, Linux as well as Unix operating system. Moving further, write any 2 characteristics of algorithm. So you want to write any 2 characteristics of algorithm. So dear student, make a note here. The same question we can able to expect for 2 marks or 5 marks. If it is only for 2 marks, write any 2 characteristics. For example, input or definite or output, efficiency, etc. If it is for 5 marks, then you want to mention the characteristics. Along with that, you need to write the explanation. So, what are the characteristics of algorithm? That is input. Algorithm starts with the procedural step to accept input data. So, input means what? Inputting data. Now, I am going to write the steps how to input the data. Then, each operation must have definite number of statements. So, definite means what? Each operational step or operation must be definite. And effective, terminate, output. Now, dear student, see the weightage. Based on that, write the answer. So, it is for only 2 marks. You want to write any 2 characteristics, and if it is for 5 marks, then you want to write all 5 characteristics. Dear students, let me to consider next question, that is give any applications of OOPS. So this question is only for 2 marks. So I want to give any 2 application, but here I listed 7 application, but in this 7 application, I want to specify any 2. For example, I can able to write hypermedia and hypertext. That means the OOPs, that is object oriented programmings, are used in the fields like hypermedia as well as hypertext. Along with that, I can able to specify artificial intelligence and expert system. Suppose if I want to develop any artificial intelligence machine as well as expert system, in that time I require OOPS. Along with that, I can able to specify CAD, CAM, CIM systems, etc. Even I can able to specify the application like simulation and modeling. So here I listed 7, but according to the question, I want to write any 2. Out of 7, I can write any 2. The best one, hypermedia as well as hypertext, simulation and modeling, or parallel programming, or neutral network, anything you can write. But you want to list only 2 applications of OOPS. Then moving on to the next question, list different types in C++. So I want to list, no need to explain what are the different types of data types. I just want to list the different types of data types in C++. If I consider C++ programming language, the data types are categorized into 3 different types. One is fundamental data types, then derived data type and user-defined data type. According to the question, what I want to do, I want to list the type of data types, that is fundamental or primitive data types, derived data types and user-defined data types. If the same question for 3 marks, then I want to write the example. That means first I want to tell what is fundamental data types. Along with that, the different types of fundamental data types, and I want to define what is derived data type and 4 different types of derived data types. Along with that, I want to define what is user data type. Along with that, different types of user defined data types. But here the question is only for 2 marks, that is list different data types. So the different types of data types supported by C++ programming language is fundamental data type, derived data type and user-defined data type. Moving further, mention any 2 functions of math.h. Dear student, what is this math.h? This is the library function. I want to write any 2 math.h functions. Here I can able to write square root. That means if I want to find the square root of any given number, instead of writing all the codes, I can make use of built-in function, that is square root, and I'm going to pass the variable or value. And to find the power of given number, once again I can able to use power function, and I'm going to pass 2 value, that is x and y. Even I can able to consider sine, that is sine of a given angle x. If I want to find the cosine of an angle x, once again I'm going to have cos function. So these are the built-in function and which is stored under math.h. Moving further, I'm going to have another question, that is compare call by value and call by reference, and this question is only for 2 marks. For that reason, at least write 2 or 3 difference, that is enough. So first let me to consider call by value. So based on which parameter I'm going to write the difference, that is definition. Now, what is called by value? I'm going to call a function by using value or by passing value. But what is called by reference? I'm going to call the function by sending the address or reference. So this is my first difference with respect to definition. Now let me to consider the second difference based on arguments. So if I use call by value, I'm going to pass the variables. So let me to write the example here. This add is my function name and this is int and this one is also int. Now if I write int and int, then this is the example for call by value. So I'm going to call this function with the help of value. But if I write address operator, then it is nothing but the reference. So this method, a variable itself passed. In call by reference, I'm going to pass the variable. But here I'm going to pass the copy of the variable. That is, if I consider call by value, I'm going to pass the copy of the variable. But if I consider call by reference, I'm going to pass the variable itself. Now, the third difference here is memory location. So, based on the memory location, I'm going to differentiate what is call by value and what is call by reference. Now, if I consider call by value, the actual and formal argument will be created in different memory location. If I consider call by value for actual parameter and for formal parameter, the different memory locations are created. That means two different memory locations are created. But if I consider call by reference, single memory, the same memory is shared between actual and formal argument. Now, actual and formal argument will be created in the same memory location. So, what are the difference here? First, based on the definition. The second difference based on the arguments. And the last difference is based on the memory allocation. Now, let me to consider the next question, that is, which operator is used to access members of a structure? Give an example. So what's the question? Which operator used to access the member of a structure? Give the example. So what is the answer for this question? That is dot operator. Suppose if I want to access any member of the structure, then I'm going to use the operator called dot. Now, the member of a structure can be accessed using dot operator. Now, the member of a structure can be accessed using dot operator. Now, let me to write the syntax here. First, I'm going to write the structure variable name, then dot operator and member name. So, here I'm going to have the example, that is structure variable name here is employee 2 dot salary. So here this salary is nothing but the member name and it carries 2 marks. One for the definition, that is which operator is used to access member of structure, that carries 1 mark, and example carries 1 mark. So this question is only for 2 marks. Moving further, the last question under part B is write any 2 alignment options used in word processor. That means I want to list any 2 alignment option which is supported by word processor. That is align, that is left align, center align, right align and justified. According to the question, I want to list any two. But here I have mentioned four. But according to the question, I want to list only two. It may be left alignment or right alignment, center or justified. It is left to you. Which one you feel easy, write any two alignment. So dear student, in my today's session, I started with part B. If I consider computer science question paper pattern, the complete question paper is divided into four sections, that is part A and part B, part C and part D. But in my today's session, I discussed part B and how to answer for part B questions because it carries only 2 marks. But in my further session, I'm going to deal with part C, that is for 3 marks, and part D, 5 mark questions. So dear student, don't miss to watch my next sessions because in my next session, I'm going to deal with part C as well as part D. I hope, dear student, in my today's session and my previous session, you got information about how to answer for part A question as well as part B questions. So dear student, let's meet in the next session with some more tips about how to answer the questions. Until then, keep watching, keep learning. Thank you.